Hi, Viraj. I'm doing well, thanks. I'm in Ukraine still, not yet back in England.
Are we safe and sound? Are we okay?
Yeah, we're safe. I did get woken up by an explosion at 1 a.m. and spent 2 hours in the bomb shelter, but we're okay now. So yeah.
Wow, what is that like?
Uh, it's one of those. I think the way I would describe it is, you know how like the gentlemanly thing to do is, you sleep on the side of the bed that's closer to the door so you can leap to action and defend your woman, that sort of thing. The In Ukraine, it's sort of the opposite. The gentlemanly thing to do is to sit on the side of the bed with, or to sleep on the side of the bed that's next to the window because it's actually the glass that's the dangerous bit, right? So you're sleeping there, so you take the glass for the lady. So that's the sort of mindset shift where it's like completely different levels of what the suddenly expectations on men versus women in the country, in war than we're used to.
Mhm.
Um, but it's sort of everywhere. I'm now sitting deliberately in the cafe, not next to the window, so that if something was to happen, it's just like in the back of your mind the whole time.
How interesting. Can I ask why you're in Ukraine?
Yeah, my wife's Ukrainian, so we just got married in the UK, and we've got to do some paperwork here. So that's the reason.
Congratulations and welcome to Ventures.
Thank Well, thank you very much. Yeah, great to be here. Great to be here.
Dude, I've been
I,
literally grokking your Twitter and LFG's Twitter to try and understand everything about you. It's absolutely incredible what you can glean off the web these days.
yeah, maybe we put a bit too much online, but that's the goal. Maybe radical transparency is one way to put it, I suppose.
I think I believe in radical transparency to a degree, but look, I think, like, honestly, we could begin anywhere. But let's be perfectly honest. I think Future House sort of is stems from it. Everything stems from there. ForestCity, LFG, and some of the other projects you're involved in. Future House in the UK. Can you just explain that to me? I came across it earlier this year, didn't quite understand what it was. Turns out we've got a hell of a lot of mutuals doing very similar flavors of it, but it seems like you were an inception point in some of this.
Yeah, I think Future House was sort of good timing, but I can sort of explain the sort of how it ended up. Since I started working, I quit school when I was 16, so I didn't go to university. Started working as a software engineer, and since that point, I've been sort of had these two parallel paths. One was working as a software engineer, and the other was going and doing social good stuff. But I worked on news, media, a little bit of politics earlier in my career, and then you know went on and did events that I find fun, hackathons, that sort of thing. Um, I I was getting more into the AI space, so I organized this event called AI London, and the thesis was if we invite people from lots of different vertical expertises of AI to give really short lightning talks, so we get 12 different talks that are all 2 minutes long. Then people from AI in healthcare get to share their learnings with people in AI from robotics, and maybe we'll get some interesting things. First event completely sold out, amazing speakers, and I thought, well, okay, we'll do this again. So we did it a couple of months in a row. And doing that, I found the hardest thing in organizing. Um, actually, what I found was the was interesting, but I was getting a lot of pull from the EAC people, like Guillaume Vernon, to say, well, AI to the expense of everything else. But then also a lot of my friends who are sort of EA, effective altruists, who are saying we're worried AI is going to destroy the world. So I've got these two sort of contending things. I'm like, well, I think AI is useful, but when we apply it to stuff in a really positive, pragmatic way. So this AI London talk series turned into Future Technology for Good, which was the Future London series. And then when organizing Future London, I found the hardest thing about running these events wasn't finding great people to come. It wasn't finding amazing speakers who would sometimes fly in from other countries to speak. It was finding a venue in London just after COVID. So I was like, well, I called up a bunch of places. One of them was the Royal Institution for our Where is My Flying Car event. I was like, this is the perfect place to do it. They host a bunch of NASA events when NASA's in the UK. And I said, "What can I use the event? I do these community events. Can I use your event space for like one of the side rooms for the event?" And they said, "Yeah, of course you can use it. That'll be 4 grand for like 3 hours." And I said, "That's insane. I could rent a warehouse for a month for 4 grand." And then they just hung up on me. Uh, and so I went and rented a warehouse, and then I was through some mutual friends, and it was the company had this sort of empty extra warehouse they didn't need for a few months. It was originally going to be for 3 months, and it ended up being 6 months. Rented this warehouse for 6 months, turned it into our sort of futurist techno optimist members club, basically, which it was. I think it never became a members club. It was more of an event space and a sort of community hub. But we had so many different events come through and communities from all sorts of tech,
Is there one that consistently
including
sticks out in your
policy
mind?
and well, we did our own sort of Future London series, still hosted at Future House. Um, one of the events, one of the Future London events, was where I met Lawrence, who's now my co-founder on Looking for Growth. So it was a how do we fix government in the UK? Was the sort of thesis or the question of the event, um, and the sort of what Lawrence was speaking about at the event. He was one of our speakers. He was sharing how he managed to get law changed on the XL bully dogs, getting them banned within a couple of months while he was just after his first son had been born. So it was sort of amazing that he managed all of this with everything else going on. Um, and that was actually a really inspiring moment, I think, for a lot of the community that was mostly software engineers. And suddenly they had this guy that, in many ways, is very relatable, same age, same sort of energy, likes to wear baseball caps, that sort of thing. Um, and suddenly he walks in and is like, yeah, we can just change the law in the country just by trying. And so that inspired me for sure, and then inspired a bunch of other people. Um, I was then sort of trying to figure out which way to take Future House. And one of the conversations Lawrence and I had, which isn't what ended up happening, was maybe Future House, we've got this tech community, maybe we also build a policy unit, and then we become this like startup policy incubator. There are other groups that do that now. So it wasn't the right approach, but that was the initial conversation that turned into LFG,
I love it.
which
Staying on the
yeah.
thread of LFG a little bit, one of the things that I came across when I was sort of like rocking you online and rocking LFG online is this narrative around the cleaning stunt that you did. I would just love to understand, was that real or was that a stunt? Because it looked real. Like
It's
you
fully real,
cleaned
fully real.
graffiti off a tube, and I think it was a
Yeah, yeah,
dude.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know who it was on the radio talking about it, how it was potentially a stunt. It was unsure if it was true or not, and I just wanted to get the facts straight, right? Like you just cleaned and then videoed yourself cleaning
Yeah, yeah,
graffiti
yeah, yeah.
off a tube,
I mean,
and people just lost their minds.
yeah, I mean, it was a stunt in terms of a media stunt, but it was absolutely like completely legit. We got accused by Andy Lord of putting the paint on before we cleaned it off, which was completely untrue. We even one of the really fun things we had a lot of journalists say they wanted to come and see what it was like to do. So we had a session where it was just myself and one other person, one other
Right.
volunteer, and then three journalists came with us. And these are we didn't really know at the time, but they weren't actually very friendly journalists. They wanted to come and sort of point holes at the thing. So they wrote some relatively mean articles. One of them was nice, but some relatively mean articles about us. But then when Andy Lord and Sadiq Khan then come out and they put the paint on before they cleaned it, suddenly these sort of actual ally newspapers of Sadiq Khan have to put out saying this contradicts our own reporting. We were there. They didn't do this, which was just amazing. But it just shows what that whole sort of episode showed was people are actually really hungry to see people doing things and to get stuck in doing things. And that's sort of now spawned I don't know, hundreds of people now cleaning their own areas that, it's not a new thing, cleaning up your own area. Lots of people
It's
do it
not,
and it's really great.
but for some reason my Twitter feed is full of it now, and it's actually really nice to see. There's this young gentleman from I think like South London area, Croydon, Surbiton area, literally just
Yeah.
going around cleaning, signposts as an example, right? So
Yeah.
that people can read it and get on a bus or know where they are. And I think it's just a positive movement in the right direction. Is that sort of the direction that it's supposed to go in?
Yeah. I mean, so I call this pro-activism. I don't like the term activism. I don't like activism and activists as a term. I don't like protests as a concept, defend people's right to protest. But I think most of the time, these protests tend to be quite a negative, and this activism tends to be it's quite negative, like anti this, we're angry, we're upset. But this was supposed to be, and I think it still is, this we're going to be proactive, we're going to improve the problem, we're going to solve the problem that we're talking about, that we're upset about. And we're going to do it in a way that is activisty, that's going to cause some bigger system change. Just prove that it can be done, and then hopefully that has some positive knock-on effect. Which I would say certainly happened with the tube, the graffiti on the tube. Within 2 weeks, the Bakerloo line was significantly cleaner, and it did get worse again after a while. We did a few bits, and then it got better again. Um, it's one of those things with these campaigns. It's hard to sort of prove either way that it was us, because obviously Sadiq Khan's never going to say yes, we cleaned it up, because they made us look bad. Um, but yeah, it's that's the sort of approach I want to take to things. Is there's a problem, instead of going out and shouting and saying I'm angry, I want someone else to solve it. I'm going to go out and say here's a solution. It may not be the perfect solution, but it's proving that a solution is possible. Now let's all figure out how to make it better and make it really workable.
Have you figured out why public sentiment is so low and why looking for growth responds so well in the public right now?
Well, I would say that looking for growth is very focused. It's not a sort of mass. All of Britain loves looking for growth yet. Maybe at some point. I would say my sense of why people are feeling pretty rough is because things are materially worse. You know, I think millennials are the first generation that are poorer than in 100 years in Britain, that are poorer than their parents. Gen Z's definitely feeling that. I would say that there's an interesting difference with millennials. They basically they were poorer than their parents, and they sort of took it. They sort of said, "Yeah, this sucks, but I guess we'll get on with it. Our parents said they didn't have money when they bought a house, and blah blah blah." Even though there are materially different circumstances and different market dynamics that are being enforced by boomers. Gen Z is really, and I'm technically millennial, but it's sort of quite close to Gen Z, really taking it quite differently and approaching. I would say this is quite a Gen Z type of movement. They're looking for growth, and the ForestCity and the FutureHouse. A lot of our members are Gen Z. They're younger than myself, Lawrence and Shiv, um, and that is like a big thing. This like age difference culturally, of we're going to go and make things better rather than just sort of sit there and take it.
Yeah, I think the sit there and take it a lot of the world is just done for a while, and it seems like this is the first generation across the board that chooses not to for some reason. I haven't figured out what it is in their mentality.
Yeah.
Again, I sit on the cusp of like sometimes I'm Gen Z, sometimes I'm very much like millennials. I think I've spent too much time with boomers, where it's like, yeah, I'm just watching Friends once in a while,
Yeah.
And I get that vibe, but there is definitely a change in how we think and public sentiment around taking action towards the things that we want and feel passionate about, right? Just across the board, not just in looking for growth. I think as people are more like that right now, and this younger generation is like that right now. Do you mind me asking, what are the
Yeah, I think.
priorities here for you?
Well, just on that previous point, and then I'll come back to priorities. I think the one of the big inflection points was EAC, effective accelerationism, where it's just one of those like extremes. It showed that you've got the EAs who are super virtuous and just like really want to be as good people as possible, and then EAC who are and so it's very selfless. And then EAC, which was like, no, we're going to make the world really good. We're going to say all these things that are completely outlandish and no one really believes. But we're going to say it because it makes us feel good, and it makes us feel more excited and higher agency and more like we're actually going to succeed. And I think EAC, as that sort of exploded, and it sort of disintegrated a little bit afterwards because there was a lot of sort of untruth to it. But the fact that it blew up like that really did sort of feed a lot of people into FutureHouse, and that FutureHouse bubble, who are like, I kind of like this like optimism and ambition, but I also think we should be a little bit more realistic, and that's sort of the base of FutureHouse, which then ended up being the base of the growth in the Future System, ForestCity. But yeah, in terms of priorities, I think the meta priority is get other people willing to do this. Like, this shouldn't be me, and it's not just me doing things, right? There are lots of people doing positive things, but this isn't me like, how do I build lots of things that do solve lots of these problems? It's how do I, and this was the point of FutureHouse, how do we inspire other people, show to other people that you can just do stuff, right? And the big sign on the wall of FutureHouse is just fucking build something, which is just saying, just start, just do something. And then once you get past that stage, I think people are much more willing to like then do the bigger thing, and then the bigger thing, and the bigger thing. And then you've got a whole population, a whole generation of people who are going out there and actively trying to make the country better.
I say this on the show, just go build the monuments and they will come, right? Just go do the thing, and
Yes.
people will want to be a part of whatever that movement is. And I
Yeah.
guess the way I look at this is this almost ecosystem of positivity, right? is you have FutureHouse, bring together like-minded individuals in a space to build. You then have looking for growth, which is how do we not win share of mind, but think about that as a positive towards society, and then actually go and do things. And then I have to go build a city where all of these people live.
Well, I think looking for growth, it wasn't quite clear what it was going to turn into. Now it's much more a political entity. It's sort of the thesis is you had lots of woke governments without having an explicitly woke government. You had lots of green governments without having an explicitly green government. And so looking for growth is the purpose, the outcome that looking for growth is driving for. And sort of stated purpose is get some pro-growth governments without having any explicit pro-growth governments. And so that's sort of shifting the Overton window, particularly among MPs, parliamentarians, within Whitehall, Westminster. And I think there are other elements to it, which is showing there are lots of people who actually do want to engage and get stuff done, do the next thing. But I think that's probably the core bit, is this political moving the Overton window, particularly for the politicians. I think the ForestCity is not just for people like me and like us. One of the reasons I love London, and I've had many opportunities to move to San Francisco, for example, which has a very high density of technologists and people like us.
Techno-optimists, as an example,
yeah,
right?
exactly. But to be honest, I love London because it's full of people that are nothing like me, and I can just, oftentimes, depending on where I am, I can just say hello to people and have an interesting conversation with someone about something I never even knew existed. And then they'll just pull out an instrument and start playing something.
Do you talk to people on the tube?
Sometimes. Okay. It depends what mood I'm in, if I've had my coffee.
I'm the same. Please continue.
But on the train a little bit more, yeah.
It's one of the beautiful things about London. It's one of the beautiful things about, just I think the city in its own right is that because it is quite literally a melting pot of people from all over the world, all of different backgrounds, different ways of living, different thinking about the world, mental models and how we should exist. You end up being able to learn a lot just of random people on the street.
Yeah, for sure. And you go into events and just, I don't know, in San Francisco, sure, there are hundreds of tech events every day, but in London, there are hundreds of events of hundreds of different types. Like the type of event I didn't even know existed, some niche folk music evening that I can show up to and drink some random craft beer while listening to some amazing music I never even heard. So that's the sort of thing I love about London, and I think for a city, that's definitely something that we'd want to retain and potentially could even boost because of the model of the city, the financial model, which we don't need to get into too much. But it does actually mean that the city is permanently affordable. It's not like we'll build it and then people will just buy a bunch of stuff and leave it empty and it'll never get used.
It's like a movement in that, like, someone's got to start building the next city someone's got to build the next city that has never existed for 50 years. And it doesn't matter about the commercial model just yet. We're going to get to that eventually, but by the time we get there, it's going to be in a place where it is commercially viable, right? When it came out and I saw the renderings, I was like, this is absolutely incredible. Like, I love the low density housing. I love the fact that there's so much green. It feels like a better example of what NEOM should have been in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you took any inspiration of that, but it felt amazing. Point, though, is will there be a cathedral?
In the land, so the land that we're looking at is over 45,000 acres of land, and in that land, under 8,000 people live there. The point that there are many churches already in that area, and the point that we think makes sense as the center of the city is right next to this amazing, beautiful church. It's not big, it's relatively small still, but you walk in and you're like, they don't have that much money. You can tell it's not well maintained. And then you look on the wall and it says the first rector was 1306. Wow, this is an old church. So that's somewhere that I think is showing this old history of Christianity in the UK for sure. But will be in the center of the city, I think, probably. Makes sense to be in the center of the city.
Why is it so important?
Maybe there'll be a cathedral.
Why is it so important for you in building ForestCity? Like, it's the first new city in 50 years. England hasn't had a new one in a considerable period of time. And you're sort of seeing this trend of people wanting to build towns, cities, because it's, well, one, it's new. Two, I think we have the capability to. Three, it's needed. But for you, why is it so important?
To build a city. Um, well, there are some fundamental problems. Obviously, there's a lack of growth, and Milton Keynes has driven a massive amount of growth in the UK. So economic growth. Apart from a couple of bits of London, Milton Keynes is the most productive part of the UK. So obviously, bits of London win, but Milton Keynes is very high on the list. So building a new city increases economic growth, GDP. There's also the fact that we've got this housing shortage. House prices are really high. We're not really building enough. Our housing stock is super old compared to the rest of the Western world. A lot of it was built post-war in a sort of a mad rush to just build houses. So it's not really particularly well thought out or well designed or modern, or energy efficient. So it's not very good for the environment either. So there's all of that, and then there's also uh, and often it's not very well integrated with nature, with trees and things. So you've got all of that, and that's all like I think justification enough in my view to do it. But then you've got this extra layer, which is Britain hasn't really done a big mega project in a while. The last one was the Olympics, which actually we're using a lot of the legal mechanisms that we use for the Olympics in this. Um, that was a great success and really buoyed the whole country. And doing a mega project, just saying we're going to try and build a city and then starting to build it, will be, I think, very positive for the country and on the whole, and make people, maybe people like us, hopefully people not like us, think maybe I can do something big as well. And so it's moving that Overton window and proving that these things can be done. But yeah, there's this like we need to build houses, we need to build them well, and solve this housing crisis. We need to build we GDP growth. And then also, if we build it in this way that we've proposed, we can build infrastructure much more easily and cheaply. We can build reservoirs, we can build power generation without the same sort of hurdles the rest of the country has, because the city will be explicitly designed in that way.
That's absolutely incredible. I mean, is there? How do you? Oh, I've got so many questions I don't have time to ask you, so we're gonna have to get you back on. How do you de-risk the ability to prevent blockers to this? Is it because you're using these existing legal frameworks, like the Olympics and some of the legal not loopholes but legal frameworks they used, and so it's sort of in place already to build a new city, and you are just able to drag and drop what you want to do on top of that?
Yeah, so there are a lot of these mechanisms that already exist. So yeah, we're building on top of that. And a lot of these mechanisms are actually hundreds or even thousands of the original versions are hundreds of thousands of years old, and they were used to build Milton Keynes as well, and the Channel Tunnel, deliver the Olympics, King's Cross redevelopment. The same tools that are actively used. Um, we're also, and this is something that's been interesting as we've been talking to the people who are supposed to be the ones building big cities, who actually know what they're doing. We go to them and the first thing they say is, wow, I can't believe how far you've gotten, this is amazing, you've got so much progress already. And then they say, but you're doing it all wrong. And we say, what do you mean? We've got all this progress, but we're doing it wrong. And it makes sense from their point of view, because they're saying you shouldn't have gone public. You should be secret and buy all the land in secret, and then after 10 years, you can say, right, we're going to build a city, and that is how you have to do it in the US. But we don't have to do that in the US. Do that like that in the UK, because we have these other legal powers and governments. The government has compulsory purchase powers, so you can sort of mandate buy the land from people. Um, so I would say from that point of view, actually the legal structure that we've got historically allow us to build cities, allow us to build great cities. And yeah, it's not like we're doing anything secret or unusual. It is, all of it is just like, even in the New Towns Commission, they wrote out some certain sort of approaches that developers could go if they were going to go and build these new towns. And they sort of, some of the mechanisms, the financial mechanisms we invented for the city, they also invented the same one for this New Towns Commission, which came out. The report came out after we published our ForestCity stuff. So not that they copied us or anything. It was a natural thing to land on. So we're not doing anything weird. We're just, the only thing that's weird that we're doing is going out and being public and trying to get people excited about it instead of doing it in secret.
I absolutely love it. Look, before we let you go, as I'm sure you've got a little bit more paperwork to do than me, I would love to ask, what are you bullish on when it comes to London and England?
I just think there's so much latent opportunity. I've been saying this for a few years, so it starts to feel a bit old or something, for me at least. But I mean, yeah, the last 50 years have not been great. Certainly since 2008 have not been great for growth and for people's pockets. But what that means is there's so much opportunity of people like we said earlier, the millennials who sort of just sat down and took it. So much opportunity for anyone else who's not willing to sit down and take it, just stand up and do stuff. Um, so we've got everything we need. We've got all this like all the fundamental stuff, the foundations. We just need to go and execute on the higher level in a sort of really aggressive, I think, positive but aggressive way, to get the wins we can quickly, the low hanging fruit. So that's why I'm bullish. I'm bullish just because there's so much to do, and it's all as we're showing with looking for growth, where we managed to change the law relatively surprisingly quickly, clean the tube, impact the tube being clean, and now get the ForestCity. Obviously, it's not built yet, but we're getting rapid progress, much faster than we expected.
I saw
I
the
think it's
tweets this
showing that
morning.
actually a lot of
It's
these
easy to say
walls,
yes.
yeah,
It's super easy to say
yeah,
yes.
it's easy
Everyone
to
is
say
saying
yes.
yes to this. Everyone is saying yes to this.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just turns out that a lot of the barriers are not there. They just look like they're there. And if you just start doing things, and this is just surprising me every single day, is wow, people actually are aligned. They do actually want the same thing as long as you listen to them and frame it in the way that makes sense to them. So there's no trickery needed, no working. Obviously, you need to work hard, but there's no like beating your head against a brick wall. It's people want this stuff, and we have all the foundations. It's not like there's no money in the UK. We're a very rich country, certainly richer than Ukraine, obviously. So there's a lot of stuff we can do. It just means going out and doing it, basically, which is the fun bit. So it's
I
great.
love it. Look, last one. I promise. I promise the last one. I saw the sizzle for Mac Clifford at the LFG conference. In the room in that moment, what did it feel like?
Yeah, I think for my sins, I was in the green room, but I came out during the talk because you could feel it even from the green room that it was something special. Everybody was talking about it I mean, still is talking about it now after a month. But the room and then the after party afterwards, it was just like the only thing anyone wanted to talk about. It was just amazing. I think the message that resonates is just we can and must be rich again, right? We can and must solve our problems, and the only thing stopping us is ourselves. And I think everybody really received that in a way that maybe they hadn't sort of internalized it before, but it really felt something special. It was really exciting for everyone. So
Joe, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on the stream. I cannot wait to sit down with you for an hour and a half and just hash this out and ask all these questions.
sounds great. Let's have a beer.
Wonderful. My friend, I'll let you crack on. See you soon. Please don't
See you soon.
kill yourself in Ukraine.
I'll do my best. Thanks, Raj. Have a good one.
Ciao.